you looking to optimize your mindset and lifestyle for success in today's business world? You're in the right place. This is where you get to build your freedom through promoting through Facebook and selling on Amazon. Welcome to Actualize Freedom with your hosts, Wilson and Danny.
Welcome to episode 10 of the Actualize Freedom podcast, guys. This one is going to be a good one. So my name is Danny Carlson.
And my name is Wilson Lee. Today we're actually going to be sharing about more of Danny's story of how he began on Amazon and how he's actually got suspended, right? And you lost like 5 figures. And like, while you're making 5 figures, you get suspended? That's crazy.
It was one of the toughest things I've been through in business, absolutely. But I mean, to kick things off here, I don't really have any business background. Like, I was a carpenter for many, many years. I'm 26 years old now, and I got started in carpentry when I was 17 or 16 or something like that. And I did that for 6 or 7 years professionally as a carpenter and really didn't know anything about online business at all, let alone business in general. So it was a really big leap for me to actually get into this whole Amazon thing. I was used to just showing up at work, just 9 to 5 in Vancouver's pouring rain a lot of the time because the winter here is super rainy and miserable outside. And I ended up hating that job. Maybe in the beginning for the first 3 years, maybe there was still a lot of learning to be had there. But after about 3 years, you're just starting to do the same thing repetitively over and over. And no one likes to stand out in the rain. And I'll be really honest, my peers in construction were not the people I wanted to be around. A lot of rough and tough dudes who, had been to prison or were alcoholics or something like that. So that I think was my real stepping off point, my motivation to really start an actual business for myself.
So it's such a big, diverse, in terms of industry wise, like going from a carpenter to selling stuff online, how does that even link up? Like when I was sharing my story with you, I was in business, I was already sourcing. So for me, it was a natural fit per se, because like I'm already in that business. But going from blue collar to like white collar, that's very, very different. Like what inspired you, or what was that pivotal moment for you?
Well, I mean, the inspiration is the same as many, many people. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Workweek. So it was probably back in, must have been 2014 or 2015 somewhere, where I first came across that book, and my mind was totally blown. Like, I just had no idea that people were creating these kind of businesses, using virtual assistants and software so that they can actually get down to something like a 4-hour work week and go travel the world and do all this stuff. Like, that literally didn't even enter my mind as a possibility before this book. Now, I mean, you could argue there's a lot of things wrong with the 4-hour work week. I mean, a lot of those Saturdays don't work anymore. There's a lot of people don't want to work 4 hours a week. And I don't even think that Amazon is a 4-hour work week type of business. I don't think it's really doable unless you get, already have built it to a crazy point, which is a lot of hard work. But just incepting that concept in my mind was enough for me to start looking into, okay, what is this whole online business thing? You got my interest now. Like, I want to go work 4 hours a week on a beach, not working out in the Vancouver rain doing some carpentry.
I think like for 4-hour work week, we shouldn't take it so literally as saying that, we only have to work 4 hours a week now. Like, it's much more of the concept of having the ability and the freedom to work 4 hours a week. I think that's kind of what the main message is. And I think that's exactly what you took away from that, is having the freedom to do so, having the freedom to travel when you want to. You're a longboarder, right? So, having the freedom to like rip down the mountain whenever you want to is freedom.
It really is. And that is one of the main benefits of owning a business, I do believe, is that, you may have to work crazy hours, but at least you get to choose when those hours are and where you do them from. Super, super powerful. But anyways, the Tim Ferriss thing, that's what got me down that path. So I started just ingesting as much material as possible. Podcasts, I started listening to Tim Ferriss's podcast, and he would have guests on there that are really smart and had their own online businesses. So I'd look into their podcasts that they had, read all the books I recommended and stuff. And pretty soon, I just got obsessed with it, basically. I started listening to at least 4 or 5 hours of podcast every single day while I was at work, while I was commuting, washing the dishes, and just learning about all the different business models while I was out there. And I went through maybe a 2-year period of learning through podcasts and books and stuff like that about online business. And then I finally reached a point, I was pretty into the downhill longboard racing. So I was about to go on this 2-month long trip out to the Philippines and Japan. It was going to be like my dream trip. You know, I had a film contract to film something in Japan. It was going to be awesome. But I just decided I was done with the carpentry grind, like saving up enough money, scraping together, sponsor money combined with my carpentry income to go on these trips, only to come back and just have to start the cycle all over again, to slog and save money and be scrimpy, right? So I decided that the second I got back from that trip, I was just going to choose a business model. I was going to dive into it.
When was this?
This would have been in early 2016. So
Okay,
January 2016. And at that point, I just made the call right before I left on the trip. I was like, it's going to be Amazon. I can't remember what I was comparing it with at the time. I think it was a course or something like that.
Yeah.
But I just chose Amazon. The second I get back, I'm going to do it.
So like right when that Amazon was the first business model out of everything that you could have chosen, Amazon was the first thing.
That was the one. I can't even remember why it resonated with me. I know that there was a lot of thought that went into this, but I just remember it had to be a decisive thing, or else I was going to, you could spend forever just weighing the pros and cons of every single business model. And the reality is that every business model works. It's just you had to commit to one and actually do it, or else none of them will work.
And referencing back to episode 9, it's all about the mindset, right? Mindset of abundance and don't dabble, right? Just, you know what, if you're going to commit to something, commit to it and see it through, right? Last episode, you were talking about the hockey stick.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the hockey stick. And that's one thing that even to this day, I have to be very careful about this is, dabbling and stuff. There's always the fancy, shiny new business model, the shiny new way to make money that pops up on the internet. And like I said, they all work. They're all valid. But you can't do all of them at the same time. And if you start 6 projects, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to see those projects through until you actually hit that upward curve, until you hit that hockey stick. You're likely just going to have a whole bunch of skid marks going down in straight horizontal lines.
For sure, yeah. And if you guys want to know more about what Danny was referring to about the hockey stick, definitely tune into episode 9. That's where he dives in a little bit more deeper about what is the trajectory for success, right? And there's some resources that we shared there as well. But anyways, let's get back to your story. You chose Amazon early 2016, and you just like diving straight into it.
Yeah, so after I made that decision, I went on this trip, and something really eye-opening happened to me on this trip. It was for racing longboards, so we're traveling around all these islands in the Philippines to go attend these races and compete in these races. They're supposed to be closed roads with no cars on them, and we just, we rip down them 4 people at a time on our longboards, going, anywhere from 60 to 90 kilometers an hour on these tracks. And it was the very first race that I was down there, and it was supposed to be a closed road, right? So I was ripping an oncoming lane, and as I'm coming around a corner, I see a motorcycle coming up the road, and I'm like way in oncoming lane, so I'm like, oh, so I just, if I hug the side of the road, I'll be okay. But little did I know that the course marshal was signaling him off the road at the exact same time that I was cutting over to the left. So what happened was a near collision of literally missing by inches. I was going maybe 60 kilometers an hour one way, motorcycle was going about 50 kilometers an hour the opposite way, and that was maybe the closest I've ever been to death right there. Literally a few inches I missed by, like had to jump off my board. So, that was just such an eye-opening thing for me. I'd always been so, accustomed to fear and, dangerous situations. But that was, a real, oh, man, that was almost it.
It's happening. It's happening. I actually saw that video. Or the picture. Was it a picture or a video?
Well, it's a video. I ended up selling the rights to that video to Viral Hog, or one of those viral video companies. So you probably see it on some fail army video or something somewhere.
Dude, it was sick. I was like, wow, it was you. Wow, it was crazy. If we actually, you know what? We'll post that picture. Can we post that picture?
I'm not allowed to post the video anywhere, but I can post the picture up somewhere.
We'll post a picture on the show notes, actualizefreedom.com/10, and you see it. It's actually pretty crazy.
It was very, very scary. But yeah, I mean, that kind of just put an exclamation mark into my decision to start the business as soon as I got back. Because I realized that, hey, I almost didn't even get a chance to start this business. You know what I mean? Like, I literally almost just died there in the Philippines and just didn't even come back and start it. So it's like that just kind of lit a real fire under my ass, and kind of shifted my mindset from how can I make enough money to go travel on my next longboard van trip to, okay, how can I really, change my life in a positive way and really, make something for myself here? It's a huge mindset shift.
That's crazy. So when you decided to jump into Amazon, who was it that you were learning from? Or were you just like, scavenging for different resources? Or was there like, for me, I started with ASM 5.
Yeah, so for me, I started out listening to a bunch of different podcasts just to get some basic information. Then I ended up purchasing just a really cheap course from a local Vancouver guy here, actually. I can't remember his name, but it was like, selling on Amazon for Canadians or something like that.
Okay.
That's where it's good. I learned some of the basics there, but it wasn't really quite enough to really fully dive in. So I actually purchased the e-commerce empire course, which is Will, I can't remember his last name, but it's like the Startup Bros. It's their course. And that was really good for me. It's maybe like the course taught me the basics. It didn't teach me as much as I would have liked, but the community built behind the course was really valuable. They had a private Facebook group of only group members, and the conversations that were being had in there and the information that was being shared was really valuable. And I've actually met some of those people in real life since, down at conferences and people who have just come up and visited Vancouver. So it's been really interesting to make those relationships in a Facebook group and then take them out to the real world. But that's where I learned my real chops. But to be honest, it was that combined with an obsessive amount of Amazon podcasts. I listened to, I was saying 4 or 5 hours a day before. At this point, I was upping it to probably about 8 hours a day of podcasts because I literally, actually probably even more. I was listening to podcasts on 2x speed. I still do all the time.
Yeah.
And like all day, 8-hour day at work, and then all the way 45-minute commute each way from home at work. So like an insane amount of podcasts.
Wow.
Like I said, this fire like really lit under my ass. So,
and how long did that last for?
that was about a 3-month period or so.
Okay.
Because I remember it took me either 3 or 4 months from the time that I like started learning about Amazon until the time that I made my first order of my first private label products, which is faster than a lot of people.
3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. But like at that point, I felt comfortable with what I was doing just literally because I've educated myself with such a vast amount of information in that 3 months.
For sure. And how did you choose your product, and like what was your first product?
My first product, one of them I'm not going to say because I still sell it. But the other one it was a dog lift harness.
Okay.
I believe it was.
Yeah.
And that one didn't do too bad, but I basically ended up not reordering that one. So out of the first 2, one of them was a killer, started selling about 10 grand a month right off the bat.
Wow.
And actually that one continued to sell on that pace or even up to 15 grand a month for the year following or so. So really solid.
So right off the gate, you're making 15 grand a month.
10 grand a month in the beginning. It built up to 15 grand.
Okay.
It's a bit of a seasonal product too,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
definitely helps out in the spring.
So you have 5. Okay, so let me get this straight. You have 5 different products that you started off with, or you just started with one?
Two that I started off with, because I like to be diversified.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it takes a lot of time to get all this stuff set up, right?
Yeah.
So like if you're only launching one product at once, and if you're still new, you don't really know if it's going to work or not yet. You don't know a whole lot of the stuff. It takes a long time to go take your second at bat and find that second product to actually go after. So I preferred to just choose the 2 best ones based on my research.
Yeah.
And hopefully one of them is going to turn out. And that's exactly how it worked. One of them, I had made a very small profit off of and just sold through the inventory. Had to actually lower the price on that one a lot. And the other one was, a hit that made quite a bit of money for the year following.
Wow. That's crazy. Like, were there any kind of crazy hurdles that you went through, or was it just like, oh, great. Now that I just started off, I'm making 10 grand a month. Awesome, amazing.
I mean, there was a lot of hurdles along the way, like on the supply chain, getting everything together needed for the listing and everything like that. But there was no real major hurdles. Like I had done my homework. I knew exactly how I was going to launch the product, exactly what I was going to do to get those sales in the beginning. Pay-per-click was all ready to go from the get-go. Optimize images, optimize copywriting and keywords. So I had everything in place, all the ducks in a row, so to speak.
Nice. Okay, so you're making 15 grand a month, freaking amazing, killing it. And how long did that run for until that like dun incident?
Yeah, I mean so I launched in September of that same year, and then the suspension happened somewhere around April or something like that.
April, okay.
So like in between that period, I went on a sourcing trip to China, the Yiwu market, and I sourced an additional 5 or 6 products when I was there. Mm-hmm. That's what I was talking about in the previous episode. It's a massive market, 70,000 supplier storefronts, and it's 1,250 square miles of market in one connected building. That's 2,000 square kilometers for you Canadians out there, which is totally mind-blowing. Millions of products, literally. So yeah, after spending 10 days sourcing products in there, came back with 5 or 6 new ones. And again, it was the 80-20 approach there. So about 20% of those products did really well, and the other ones just fell by the wayside, didn't really work so well. Mm-hmm. And out of the ones that did really well, there was one of them that was almost immediately started selling 20 grand a month.
Oh, wow.
Worth of product, and that was doing really good. So my account was getting up to a really solid amount of money at that point. So started investing in a couple new products, and where I really ran into the trouble with the suspension that's coming up here is when a buddy of mine, he was selling this Apple. It was an accessory for an Apple Watch.
Yeah,
and Apple apparently has like over 60 trademarks.
Yeah.
And like they're word trademarks, right? So he asked me if I wanted to like hop on this listing and drop ship this product for him. There's like 15 people also selling on the listing, and it was a no risk option for me to make some more money, right? So I'm like, sure. And I trust this buddy, so I just got the flat file for the listing, uploaded it onto Amazon, and just started selling on that listing. And it was bringing in sales. It was bringing in easy money. Extra couple $100 a week or whatever that I didn't have to fulfill the inventory. I wasn't responsible for it. But what caused the issue was in the title of that listing was one of Apple's trademarked words. And so technically the title was infringing on one of their trademarks. And like, this is just one of those dumb mistakes that if I actually would have done the due diligence and looked into it before uploading the listing, then it would have been no problem. I just would have said like, no, like I'm not going to put this on my account.
What was the trademark word? Do you remember?
It might have been lightning. I think it was lightning or one of those. There's like 60 something trademarks by Apple. They're word marks.
So it's like Apple's lightning. Is that the trademark, or just anything with like lightning?
Well, like it has to be in the context of Apple, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't pretend to know exactly how trademark law works.
Yeah.
It's very complex. But anyways, it doesn't matter if you're actually infringing on someone's trademark. All that needs to be done is the trademark holder to file a complaint with Amazon.
Yeah.
And then your listing is automatically suspended. And Apple obviously has a lot of weight with Amazon. So it's not just like one of your small competitors who doesn't sell very much on Amazon complaining. This is Apple's trademark team complaining. So they take that very seriously. So anyways, my account was immediately suspended.
So your whole account was suspended. Were you talking about like 5-6 different products that you're selling at the same time?
Yeah,
so
totally.
If they suspend, they're not just suspending that listing itself. They're suspending the whole account.
Well, it actually started out with just the listing being suspended. And they're saying the reasons for that. So I immediately took down the listing, just like delisted it from my account and everything. Responded to the request from Amazon. Thought that was the end of it. But then you get, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 days later, I got the notice that my account was under review. And like the listed reason was because of this Apple trademark thing. And then a
Wow.
couple days after that, the whole account was suspended. And so obviously I'm freaking out at this point.
You're losing
It's-
like six. We're talking about like 5 figures a month. Or like,
Yeah.
like 20, 30, $50,000 a month.
Totally. So like every single day that account is suspended is, over $1,000 a day in sales that is not happening on this account. Meanwhile, I have inventory. I had just made some inventory orders of, a lot of units of some different products that were coming in. It's already paid for. Manufacturer's making it, right?
Oh, shit.
So I'm freaking out. So I've heard of Cynthia Stein. It's like a, really popular reinstatement specialist. And so initially I went to Cynthia Stein and asked, got a quote on how much it was going to cost. They quoted me at $7,500 for a reinstatement because
$7,500.
because it involves Apple and like a trademark claim, they
Yeah.
recommended that I get a lawyer involved, and so like that was most of the expenses. Like
Okay, yeah.
their lawyer cost was quite a bit. So I looked for a second opinion on a company. I can't remember the name of this company, but they're offering reinstatement services for quite a bit less, and the rep was pretty convinced that he could actually get it done without the lawyer. And so honestly, I got roped into this guy. Ended up wasting $800 on his reinstatement. He was a nightmare to fucking deal with.
Oh, wow.
AMZ Armory was the name of it. Write this one down. That company is scammy for sure.
Wow.
He eventually just stopped responding to my messages, and like it took many days in between the messages with this guy.
So you're not even talking about like the price of the $800 is one thing, but then the opportunity cost of leading you on and you not being able to sell is another thing that we're talking about.
Absolutely. Like I said, every single day that this account was down is another day where you're not making any sales, and there's still costs of the business going on.
Holy shit. Yeah.
Totally stressful situation. But anyways, after I think it wasted about a month of time by the
Okay.
time we figured out that this AMZ Armory guy had no fucking clue what he was doing.
Yeah.
So at that point, I went back to Cynthia Stein and ended up paying their large fee for that. And unfortunately, their team wasn't able to get that account back over the course of, we tried, one email, and then we, send the other email the second way, and then you do it another way. So, pretty much came to the conclusion that, a lot of accounts, they just stop responding to stuff. And for certain things, like trademark infringement, especially with a company like Apple, they just take it really seriously. Like, it's not worth it for Amazon's team to be fighting Apple. That Amazon makes a very large amount of money off of
Yeah.
Apple products being sold on, their site, so they take it really seriously.
So technically, you got robbed. Isn't that how you feel inside? That you're being robbed right now.
Oh, well, in the beginning, all sorts of emotions going through. It's like, why is this happening to me? Like, this is so stressful. Like, everything was going so good and all this stuff.
What was your mindset like at that time? Like, what was your emotional state?
Oh, I was extremely stressed out. For that month, for the first month especially, I was, losing a lot of sleep over it for sure. Because, like, there's this whole thing that I've worked so hard to build up. I had a lot of money personally invested in there. That was all going up in smoke, it seemed. And like there was really, I was doing everything that I could to get it back, and it made me feel powerless. You know what I mean? Because everything that I was doing, it just wasn't working. Looking back on it now, though, I see it as a really empowering experience. You know what I mean? Like back then, it was a mindset of like, oh my God, this is
end
this
of
is
the world.
terrible, and it could have been so easy to look at it as I just got robbed, Amazon screwed me over, and all this stuff. But honestly, like big things like this happen in everyone's business at some point. And I would have rather that it happened to me while I was still at a fairly small scale. Big for a lot of people, but like small in the grand scheme of like a business, like a real large
Oh, for
business.
sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I could have made the same mistake at $2 million a year or $10 million a year, and then it would have been a $500,000 mistake or something like that, right?
That's a very positive way of looking at it. That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
And like the lessons that I've learned mindset wise and like my ability to deal with tough situations in business grew like tenfold from that whole situation.
Wow.
You know what I mean? If I like things that I tell myself, like if I can push through something super terrible like that, just like lose an entire year's worth of work just down the drain, down the toilet, and a whole bunch of money and opportunity costs, and be totally okay with it and just like pick myself back up and just keep going, then like what else can I handle that's way gnarlier than that? You know what I mean?
Totally. I think that's the grit, and that's the mindset that entrepreneurs needs to have, because it's just gonna hit you left, right, center, and if you're gonna get knocked down so easily, then how can you succeed?
Yeah, well, absolutely right.
Wow. So okay, you pay the hefty sum, and going back and forth. Amazon's like, nope, your account's still suspended. You're in this hole, and then what? Like, did you give up, and what happened after?
Yeah, well, like once I kind of figured out that like, okay, like it's very small chance I'm ever gonna get this account back. Like, what's my next move? I'm like, first thoughts were like, man, I'm done. I got to go back to carpentry. This is it. Like, I'm screwed. But like, well, funny story actually. I did actually try to get a carpentry job again, and so I worked one full day of this carpentry job, and then partway through the second day, I actually got fired.
Wow!
I totally got fired from that job. It was over
too much podcasting.
No, like I won't go into the details of it. It was just something like a stupid disagreement with the boss's cousin or something like that.
Okay.
And like totally blown out of proportion.
So it was irrelevant of your work ethic. It was just something personal.
This is something totally personal. And
Gotcha.
like, I'm a great carpenter and I have great work ethic, but I just took that as a sign. It's like, man, I am not meant to be an employee. Like I can't like give up on this thing. So after that 2-day stint, I immediately just went back to it. At that point, I had been growing a marketing agency called Kenji ROI, which I started maybe 6 to 8 months previous to that.
Yeah.
And I had built up, a decent little clientele base just as a side hustle, right? It wasn't supposed to be anything full, but I saw potential for a full-time income coming out of that. And at the time, it's like, that's what I needed, right? I just went through this whole thing. And so I just decided to shift my focus 100% to the agency. So shifting from like, how do I sell my own products the most to how do I help other Amazon sellers grow their accounts, really get some growth. And like, a lot of that was listing creation with product photography and copywriting and video. So it was a totally different style of business. It's a whole lot of different aspects to a marketing agency for Amazon than it is for, just a regular Amazon seller, right? So it was a big shift, but I just really poured myself into that from the day that I got fired from the carpentry job.
Have you not thought of like actually setting up a new account? Because I think like for me, like if I get suspended, I'm just thinking like for me, if I get suspended, wouldn't I want to start up a new account? Is that not doable?
I mean, it is doable. There's lots of people out there that do it. However, it is definitely against Amazon terms of service.
Okay.
So Amazon, they monitor it very closely, right? It's a huge problem of sellers getting suspended and just opening up new accounts, like dozens of times in a row or something like that, right? Yeah. And mostly it's sellers doing some black hat tactics, things that are illegal or manipulating the Amazon system and stuff like that. So they have really strict things in place to make sure that people don't open up second accounts.
Gotcha.
Nowadays, you actually need like some pretty intense verification. When I got started,
passport verification.
Totally, and like everything needs to line up with names on the business and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But the way I see it, I don't want to build my livelihood or build a business off something that is as fragile as that. You know what I mean? If I'm always worried about my account getting shut down because it's set up on the sketchy foundation of being not allowed by Amazon, I wouldn't sleep at night. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And that's another benefit that I really like about the agency is that I am not resting the entire business that I've built on one single account at the whim of Amazon. Like, there's so many suspension horror stories out there. Like, mine is the least of it. I've met some guys who have, they've been doing millions of dollars of sales on an account, and it still gets suspended for, even dumber reasons. Like a competitor went and, left a whole bunch of fake complaints on there.
Oh, yeah.
And they, same deal. They just weren't able to get it back through all the Amazon red tape, through all the, suspension team and all that stuff. And that's, millions of dollars a year that's gone.
That's people's livelihoods that we're talking about. So you're smart. You saw that you don't want to be at the mercy of Amazon. That's why you want to be able to choose another business model that is around, that you can still leverage off your knowledge of. Because you've studied so much into this, you've become an expert in this, and you're specializing in it. So you're just shifting your way of making money to a different model and having your own agency. And how has that been for you?
Oh, it's been really great. One thing I really love about this model is that I have to build a team to actually have an agency.
Nice.
Not just an army of virtual assistants that are off in the Philippines, which are great. I have some virtual assistants as well for certain things. But it forced me to actually work with people locally to actually like build this company culture and to be working around other people too. Because, laptop lifestyle sounds really great, but it can get kind of lonely if you're just sitting in your bedroom every single day, just, working away on stuff, or you're, in a corner of a coffee shop where no one's talking to each other.
Wow. This freaking crazy journey, and like emotionally talking, right? We're talking about like this all within the matter of like what, a year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years or so.
2 years or so. Wow, that's been a huge shift, and so much shit has gone down for you. But for other people that are listening to this, like, what is that one takeaway that you want to give to them?
I mean, the biggest takeaway out of all this, oh man, it's hard to distill this down to what is the biggest one. But I mean, for me, going through this entire experience, it was that, if I get started with something, I have to know that I am committed to it 100%. You know what I mean? Because the worst case scenario when my account got suspended would be I just gave up and went back to carpentry, and I never took another shot at business ever again. You know what I mean? And like, that is the story of so many people. How many people have an uncle or like a friend or whatever who that's what happened to them? They took their shot. They're like, oh well, it didn't work out, and then they lived the rest of their life in a job that they hated. When they knew that they could have done it again if they got another shot. Reality is, most first businesses fail. It's an anomaly where someone's first business actually does well. So I think the biggest takeaway here is to have the mindset that even if it doesn't work out the first time, you're going to keep going. You're going to find that iteration. Like, how can I repurpose what I've learned from this one into my next venture? Or how can I tweak the current venture that's not working into one that will work? You know what I mean? It's a constant ongoing process. The other huge one, this is even bigger, is don't tie your own personal identity into how your business is doing.
Yeah, totally.
That was huge, because you can imagine how crushed I was when my Amazon account got suspended. And like, I had built so much personal pride around, being this guy who has created this Amazon business, who has, had success with the first product that he put up there and all this stuff. I was posting in a lot of Facebook groups and, well-respected as a knowledgeable person on it. And then that was like a direct hit to my own ego, to my own self-worth, when all of a sudden the business takes a nosedive, you know what I mean? So it's taught me to separate how I do in business from, my own self-worth.
Totally. And I think that applies like for the good and bad. There are other people out there that, you get awards and so on and so forth, and your ego and your pride is through the roof, and it makes you feel like that you're all that. But really, that is just your business your business validation has nothing to do with you as the core you. Right? Like, when you're home, you still need to take out the trash for your wife, right? So you're not better than anyone else. So I think it's awesome that you said that, and we're able to see that from a different perspective, where, it keeps yourself humble when you're successful, because, there's a lot of things that are going well for you at that time, whether it be the opportunity, being at the right place at the right time. I mean, same thing when it fails, which is shitty, and a lot of times it's out of your control. So it has nothing to do with you. So knowing you and being self-aware of who you are, and not tying that identity of being an entrepreneur to who you truly are, I think is very, very important. And that's a really inspirational message that you're sharing. And I totally understand and see where you're coming from.
Absolutely, yeah. The person who really helped me like figure that out was Tom Bilyeu. He's
totally,
the founder
yeah.
of the Impact Theory podcast. That's the most influential podcast of mine, by the way. Definitely subscribe to that one. Tom Bilyeu is one of the co-founders of Quest Nutrition, $1 billion protein bar company. And yeah, the people that he has on his podcast are very, very smart A-level people.
Dude, they're like world class. Like everyone that is like world renowned is on his show. Freaking crazy.
Oh yeah, it's totally nuts. Yeah, I mean like Rob Dyrdek was on there the other day, and he has a lot of people on there that you've never heard of that have done the most absurd,
Totally.
intense feats and accomplishments, like growing up in the ghetto to building $100 million companies and being on Oprah and all this stuff. Like that's the kind of people he has on there, like true inspiration and hacking your brain to actually achieve these crazy things that these people have done.
What was that one video that that was viral that got him on the map? Do you remember?
Oh, I mean, he has a number of them now, actually. But yeah, you guys have probably seen his Simon Sinek.
Exactly, that's the one
interview.
I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about millennials.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I only got like 20 million views or something
That one
insane.
was what really put him on the radar. I personally think, like for me, that was my first time of being in touch with him, and so are a lot of my other friends. Like, oh my god, this video, and then we got to know who this Tom guy is and what Impact Theory is, and then it really got me really hooked onto it too. Super inspirational, awesome stuff.
Oh, absolutely, man. All right, well, thanks for joining us for episode 10. If you want to check out the show notes, that'll be on actualizefreedom.com/10. And if you like it, subscribe on iTunes, subscribe on Stitcher, wherever it is. Give us 19 stars out of 5 if you can. Well, I don't know. Maybe you can figure out how to hack the code and give us 19 stars.
Leave
We'll
us a
appreciate it.
review, actually. Let us know how we're doing. Like, I mean, we're still starting this out. We want to know how we can improve, right? So if it's not a 5-star, give us a 4-star. Give us a 3-star. Give us an honest opinion of how you like us to be able to develop the episodes moving forward.
Totally. We want your real feedback, and we promise we won't cry if you give us a 3-star review.
We just quit. No more podcasting. Anyways, have an awesome day. We'll see you right back here on the next episode.
See you guys.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Actualize Freedom with Wilson and Danny, online at actualizefreedom.com. If you like today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.